Thank you very much for everybody who's here today. Just want to say, very happy and proud of the way we finished the game. I thought our players continued to fight throughout the game. Obviously there's a lot to be cleaned up for about 5 minutes into the fourth quarter that we have to get better at. But for the most part, for three quarters and a quarter, I guess, 3.25 of that game, we played pretty well defensively. So, but thanks for everybody being here.
Thank you, Coach. Appreciate it. We'll open it up for questions, and we'll begin with Paul Garrison.
Coach, could you take us through that end of the fourth quarter and just maybe what you saw that changed for Utah?
Yeah, absolutely. Paul, I would say, first and foremost, they changed their quarterback. We thought the world of the quarterback from Baylor, thought he was really talented as a football player, did some really nice things at Baylor, and, moved around a little bit, but not as much in our game. And then, they put in the backup quarterback who I felt like a lot of times, like he just felt like he was freewheeling and dealing, and just didn't have the same pressures maybe that the first guy did as far as that. They did some nice job changing up some of their protections and doing some stuff. And then at that point, we felt like we had a pretty good lead, and we tried to play a little bit more zone and a little bit rush 4, and we struggled tackling. And that was, I think, the most disappointing thing was played good zone coverage, a couple errors here or there, but balls were caught in front of us, and, we got to make those tackles, especially heading into conference and, with a tough opponent this week against Towson. And understand, there's part of like showing up and starting fast and then finishing the job and making sure that you put your signature on that product of work that we just did. And I think that's a disappointing thing that we're going to talk about this week as far as, putting together 4 full great quarters of something that you could be proud of.
And your defense showed a lot of depth. Obviously, the line was rotating a lot. You rotate a lot in linebacker. End of the game, cornerbacks, and then could you talk about just Kyron White and his ability to come in for Pat and the play just in general, but Kyron White specifically?
Yeah, so I think Kyron did a nice job. I think that if you talk to our safeties coach, Coach Kyle Hoke, there's some things that obviously he has to improve on. He did a really nice job adding into the run game and, not really skipping a beat. I think that's something that Pat's done a great job of. I would say Kyron needs to work on some coverage stuff. But, from a competitive standpoint and being able to fill the shoes that Pat has done, he did an outstanding job. And again, I want to make sure I stress this. There's still a lot of work for us to get better at, heading into this next game against Towson and as well as our conference. But, very proud of him stepping up in a critical situation and almost not skipping a beat to a certain extent. And, those are things that, throughout Coach Hoke's tenure, as well as with Coach Long, trying to create a culture of accountability. The mindset would be next man up mentality. And whether, that person's starting or it's the backup's job, you have accountability to this team and to this defense to be able to be prepared mentally, emotionally, and physically to be able to play snaps at any given moment.
So you talked a couple weeks ago in preparing for Arizona about how to prepare for 2 quarterbacks. Coach Hoke mentioned it at the end of last game. Tosin has played 2 quarterbacks. How do you do that? I mean, they're more similar, I guess, than the other ones, but how do you prepare for 2 quarterbacks and have packages in for 2 different guys during the week?
I don't necessarily know, Paul, if you're going to go with true packages as far as that, but you're going to watch as a staff, you're going to watch and say, hey, is this guy going to do this? Is that guy going to do this? The problem with going back to Utah is, you didn't get a chance to see number 7 play much. He hurt his knee in the USC game, so we saw some snaps of him last year, but doggone, he could really run with the ball. I think he had some illegal grease on his jersey during some of that game, to be honest with you. Like he couldn't catch him or tackle him. But that being said, I mean, he did a great job. But more to Towson now, their quarterbacks are pretty similar. Big stoic type guys. They do run the ball with them at times. They did a little bit more in 19 than they have so much prior to last season than this season as much. But they definitely get rid of that ball pretty quick. And so from us, it's similar to last week as far as, their backup came in and he was just, getting rid of it a little bit quicker than what we wanted to, then allowed our rush to get home. So we're going to watch it, maybe change it a little bit, tightness of coverage, maybe coverage calls, adjustments, but not so much as far as a package or a blitz package, anything this week right now, Paul.
Thank you. Congratulations on the 3-0 start.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Paul. We'll go to John.
Hey, Coach, how are you?
I'm doing great.
Good. How difficult is it to defend the play that you guys ran on offense in the third overtime, the Philly special play? How challenging is that for a defense to be prepared for something like that?
Have you been to our spring game and watched us lose to it every time?
I have, actually, last year.
Yeah. So it is challenging because the structure setup of the play is the quarterback comes up to the front and then makes an announcement. So he's sort of checking something. So as a defense, it's naturally to be like, what's he saying? You get out of your stance. You're trying to listen to what he's saying. And the next thing you know, the snap is gone. And it's run away from where he's at. So now your eyes go right to where their ball is being ran. And whoever's supposed to be, maybe contained or anything like that might be contained. But in 99.9 percentages of defenses, if it's man or in a pressure situation like that might be, you're not going to have somebody man-to-man on a quarterback. It just doesn't happen. You have the receivers, the tight ends, the eligible guys, but you just don't normally account for the quarterback in a man principle deal. And so from that standpoint, it's, it can get you from that. But yes, Coach Heklinski's done. I can count the number of plays, like literally when we go into fall camp, it's like, here comes Philly special. Be ready for it. Don't get caught, all that other stuff when we defend each other. Just like he knows what blitzes are coming, in those critical situations for us.
And then on your stop, the third overtime conversion play, from your vantage point, did you think that the game was tied up?
To be honest with you, not really, because I had my eyes somewhere else rather than where the ball was thrown, because I was afraid. We ran a different coverage than we really have ever shown. It's more of a 2-point play coverage that, is maximum coverage. But if the quarterback scrambles, that's what I was concerned with. And so my eyes were on that, and I was like, okay, he's still in the pocket, ball's thrown. I sort of traveled to where it was, and I was like, okay, we're up again. And then, I saw Sagoon say it was incomplete. And so I was like, well, maybe. And then they showed the replays of it. And I was like, oh my gosh, Coach, I don't know if you're going to want to believe me, but we got to throw a challenge flag or something like that, because, or challenge this play because of that. And it just so happened that they, buzzed down and they challenged that there. And we saw it. I mean, they circled that little ball being out and all this other stuff. And I was just like, oh my gosh, what a game. What a game.
An amazing game. I wanted to ask you kind of lastly, as a defensive coordinator, how much emphasis do you need to put on conversion plays now, specifically with second overtimes as a forced conversion play, third overtime on as a forced conversion play? Has that taken on an added emphasis because of the changes in college football here in 2021?
Absolutely. And if I'm not mistaken, I want to say it was adjusted last year, just that we just haven't had that opportunity for it. But again, from a player safety standpoint, you talk about, I think it was LSU, we were talking about as a staff, LSU versus, I can't remember who it was. It was a couple years ago, but maybe Texas A&M, LSU, Texas A&M. I think it went into 7 overtimes. So that's like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, just play after play after play, and the amount of pounding. And, it's just it's smarter to do those things from a safety perspective. But without question, as a play caller, you have to sit here and try to go back and do your video study as far as what might be their 2-point plays. And I would think most offensive staffs are going to have about 2 or 3 that they have a lot of confidence in. And then the rest of them are probably plays that they just run the most often that they have confidence in. And so from that standpoint, you just go back and say, hey, this is what the coverage we like to do, maybe a pressure. This is where we want to attack them from that standpoint.
Coach, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, John. We'll go to Chris.
Hey, Coach. My name is Chris Heidel from Hermiston Radio in Baltimore, Maryland. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Chris. How are you doing, bud?
Doing great. I followed Towson University a lot for the last couple of years. What do they look like on film? And I know you guys play in the Mountain West. What do they look like with your teams out there? Do they look similar to one of your teams?
To be honest with you, Chris, I'd say not really. just from the standpoint, they're going to be very multiple in personnel. A lot of times out in the Mountain West, we're going to see 11, like one tight end, 3 receiver sets. We're going to see 4 receiver sets. Sometimes we're going to see 2 tight end sets, but Coach Ambrose has done a great job as far as matching their personnel with multiple personnels and having you defend everything. I mean, they come out in 0-0, which is 5 receivers on the field at once. So it's still a little bit of a spread deal, but they're definitely running a play called power. And the game of football is not really running that as much anymore. It's become more of a spread game. So you have to sort of go back into your notebooks and say, how do we defend power? Because you see one back zone or stretch and things like that. And so I wouldn't say Coach Ambrose is old school, but he has some tough, hard-nosed principles to his game planning and his personnel as far as really wanting to run the ball, control the clock. Their pass game is very program driven as far as concepts, and you can see that. And then they have quick passes that's going to try to allow get the ball to their athletes and put them in space. But he does a great job, and they've faced 2 really good teams in New Hampshire and North Dakota State the last 2 weeks, and they've done some good stuff throughout those games. The scoreboard might not match the final product, but they've done different things that sits there and says, okay, they have some really good speed, they have some good athletes. If they can get them in open space and do that, and I've been in the FCS level for a while, so definitely familiar with Towson and understands what the Colonial Conference can do and how talented that Colonial Conference is.
Yeah, it's very talented with JMU and
No question.
Delaware and all that stuff. And the quarterback for Towson is Chris Ferguson. Used to be a quarterback at Maine, and now he went to Liberty, and now he's back to Towson. What do you see on his film? I know he's not having a great last 2 games, but he's still a very good quarterback. No
question. And he's able to deliver the ball and get the ball to his receiver. Sometimes it could be a protection issue and him getting hit a little bit. Sometimes it maybe it's like, the read that he wants to go with might not be there. That defense is maybe taking that away. So he's going to a second or third target and it might not be on time. So, but without question, he's got an arm. Without question, he can pull the ball down and run with it. But, I think, I saw somewhere he's thrown for almost 6,000 yards in his collegiate career. I mean, that's a lot of yards. And, if I'm not mistaken, 2 years ago when he was at Maine, they had made a nice run to the deep into the playoffs. And maybe it was 3 years ago with Maine, but I know they had a great defense because I followed what Maine did and all that other stuff. But, a really talented player, puts the ball in the receiver's hands. And, again, I wouldn't say he's like the running threat that maybe we saw this past week with the backup quarterback at Utah, but he knows how to manage his system and knows how to, get the balls to the players and function within their system with what Coach Ambrose is looking to do.
Thanks, Kirsten, and enjoy this week.
Hey, thank you, and have a safe trip out here, Chris.
Thanks.
Thanks, Chris. We'll go to Derek.
Hey, Coach. I may have been missing it because you're disguising it so well, but it looks like you're getting a lot of pressure without having to bring too many blitzes. I just looked up the stats. You guys, 9th in the country with 12 sacks in 3 games so far this year. Am I accurate in that? And is that a testament to the guys up front? Every time I look up, it looks like Keyshawn or Cam are living in the backfield.
Derek, without question, Coach Hoke, Coach Thomas are doing an amazing job with our front four. And I'll a little pat myself on the back with Caden McDonald or Garrett Fountain, guys that are rushing the passers as well as linebackers that we sort of consider part of the front. But we are having that capability, and we're trying to disguise some things, put more people on the line of scrimmage, rush people unconventionally, and making them account for them. But without question, that's what we tried to do towards the end of the game, was just rush 4 and play as best zone coverage as we could. And, they executed well. They're a really well-coached Pac-12 team with Coach Whittingham at Utah. So, hats off to them to be able to put themselves back in a situation. But we didn't really want to get into an overload or a max pressure situation. But without question, to go back to the original thought, is we are trying to just rush 4 as much as we can, just maybe from different angles and in different alignments.
And then when you talk complimentary football, I assume that's also helping. I mean, Taylor's made a couple of big plays on the back end. Yeah, he and Thompson have some experience, but you got a younger secondary. How much is that helping you guys just help those guys ease in and learn on the job?
It does. There's no question. And, we went into that game not knowing if we could even play man against them, to be honest with you, Derek. And then as the game went on, talking to the secondary in the sideline, they're like, hey, Coach, we're good. So that opened up the doors for a couple other things as the game went on. And, that's sort of our approach each week. Can we cover these guys? We want to say we can, but the reality is as the game goes on, can we cover them to be able to play man and put another guy in a pass rush? And then the same thing is if we're rushing and getting home with 4, then let's play as much zone or best coverage that we can play within zone, multiple types of zones and stuff.
And then John asked about the Philly special. We'll call it the Aztec special, I guess.
Absolutely.
Offenses can do gadget stuff. They can do all kinds of crazy fun stuff. Is there an equivalent for a defense? Is there something like a gadget defensive play that you guys, that somebody can come up with where you're doing the same kind of thing, or are you guys kind of at the mercy of playing your more base type things?
That's a great question, Derek. And I'd say, I don't know if you had a chance to see, we tried to put in, a couple different looks, out there, as far as alignments and stuff. But that, I would say, an alignment issue, or as we would say, a shell would maybe be the only thing where we're looking like we're playing man and then we play zone, or look like we're zone and go to man. But, I would say the offense, the game is a little more dictated to the offense as far as having that capability of running some tricks, reverses, and stuff. And as a defensive player, you're more reactionary as much as anything.
Just go Jerry Glanville, put all 11 on the line.
Yeah, I don't know if Coach Hoke would agree with that.
Thanks, Coach. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Derek. We'll go to Allison.
Hey, Coach. Now that you guys are 3-0, do you think that will lead to maybe more people taking the trip up and getting some more people in the building for you guys?
Yeah, I would hope so. Obviously, we're a little, at least myself, is a little bit more focused on the day-to-day, play-to-play situation. So, I did ask our, as we're talking from a headset down, I do hear noise. So obviously you hear some stuff, and it was pretty ruckus and stuff. But these young men have played their hearts out, and I do believe that there's a great fan support for San Diego State and all their athletics. I do know, be honest with you, on our travel from where we stay in our hotel to the stadium, it was pretty bad traffic wise. So I don't know if there was a little bit of a late arrival type deal for them or not, but I know that. As we continue to try to do the best that we can and represent this university the best way, that the fan support will be there, and whoever's there will be loud in support of our football players.